Hello, Sandman Nation. It is time to enter Sandman Sports. The votes are in, and our co-host, Pat Klatt, has won the award for his mom's favorite host on this podcast, although we did need to do a recount. And then there's the president of Sandman Nation, the one and only Sandman, Bill Sanders, who will always get my vote for being one awesome and righteous dude. All right, boys. Hopefully you are ready to bring it today. Are we ready to roll?
Do this.
There you go.
All right. Well, before we get into today's opening, let's tell our listeners where they can find us. You can find us everywhere, listeners, just like campaign ads during election season, but way more fun, way more informative. And we promise all of your dreams will come true if you listen to our podcast. We're Enter Sandman Sports, and we approve this message. In all seriousness, the best part of this election being over with is no more ads for a while. Thank goodness for that.
Thank goodness.
All right. But where can you find us? Lots of places. Check us out on Instagram at Enter Sandman Sports. Check out our website at entersandmansports.com. Lots of articles, expert advice, weekly polls. You can find this podcast there. And you can also find the St. Louis Syndicate and their 3 weekly quick hit videos that are just freaking awesome. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at Enter Sandman Sports and follow us on Facebook at Enter Sandman Sports. All right, boys. Well, this is episode number 12, and that made me immediately think of one of the greatest recent number 12s in sports history, Mr. Tom Brady. I do have a few things in a moment to share about Tom and a couple questions for you each, but first, there are a lot of impressive 12s in sports history. So I want to share a few, but are there any that just immediately spring to mind for you guys? You guys are more Jersey guys than me, probably. Any 12s in sports that just jump out at you?
Mine's easy because the Seahawks kind of ripped it off from Texas A&M, but they have what's called the 12th man. And
That's awesome. Yes.
So like a Seahawks jersey, number 12, no name on the back.
Yeah.
That's what I think. I've never been to a game for Seahawks. I have been to a game at Kyle Field. The 12th man is very cool there, and I'm sure it's very cool for Seahawks too. All right. Well, there were a lot of number 12s. Obviously, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Jim Kelly. And these are all just quarterbacks. Roger Staubach, Terry Bradshaw, Joe Namath, Bob Greasy, Andrew Luck, and Ken Stabler are the ones that came to, I think, that were the best quarterbacks to wear 12. But then in other sports, we have John Stockton and Dwight Howard in the NBA, Wade Boggs and Roberto Alomar in baseball. And I know we have some NASCAR lovers out there, so we'll give some love to Bobby Allison and Ryan Newman. And one other I want to shout out, Michael Jordan. Yes, you're probably asking, what the hell is Bierman talking about? He was 23. But on Valentine's Day in 1990, for one game, his regular jersey had been stolen against the Magic. And so he wore number 12. He ended up scoring 49 points, but they lost. So he did not stick with number 12.
And he was number 45 for a little bit, wasn't he? Number 45 for a little bit?
With the Wizards, I think he was number 45. Yep. Yeah. All right. Well, I do want to, I know Tom Brady can be polarizing. Some people love him and some people can't stand him, but the facts lay out that he truly is one of the greatest ever. So I do want to give him a little bit of love here. Most know that Brady went to Michigan, but he was not highly touted there. And at one point, he was actually 7th on the quarterback depth chart, and he thought about transferring back to California, which is where he was from. He wanted to go to Berkeley. He battled most of his time there against a highly recruited guy, a guy named Drew Henson, but he ultimately beat him out. Brady's first pass attempt ever at Michigan was against UCLA. It was intercepted and returned for a 42-yard pick six. Ultimately, he started every game in 1998 and 1999 and was named All Big Ten honorable mention both of those seasons. In the 2 seasons that Brady started at Michigan, he posted a 20-5 record, including wins in the 1999 Citrus Bowl and the 2000 Orange Bowl, and he had a 1-1 record against Ohio State. He finished his career ranking 3rd in Michigan history with 710 attempts, 442 completions. He was 4th with 5,351 yards and a 62.3% completion percentage. Even I never realized how accomplished he was while at Michigan. I mean, he was good, but he just never really stood out. He was famously drafted by the Patriots in the 6th round of the 2000 NFL draft, got his first start in the 3rd game of the 01 season after Drew Bledsoe got injured. The list of his accolades could take the whole show, but I'll just spotlight a few. Brady won 7 Super Bowls. He won the league MVP 3 times, and he ranks 1st all time in wins with 251, Pro Bowls with 15, Super Bowl MVP awards with 5, completions, attempts, passing yards, and passing TDs. All right, enough for the praise on Tom Brady. So here's my questions for you guys. As I said, Tom Brady can be polarizing. Some like him, some don't. So first thing is, I want to know if you guys like him or not, and why or why not. Then I want to know, who is your favorite current starting quarterback in the league right now, and why? Try not to pick anybody from your home team, so I will not pick Joe Burrow, although I do love that guy. And then what quarterback in the league right now just irritates you, just kind of irks you? So, Pat, why don't you start us off, buddy?
Well, I am the same age as Tom. We have had similar lives. Both of us spent our lives dedicated to sport. And he, with his little football career and my illustrious coaching career, are both beginning what I assume will be long careers behind the mic. He at Fox and me at Sandman Nation. So our lives are pretty much running parallel. We both also attract beautiful women. The only difference is
I've seen your wife, so there is definitely.
The only difference is mine stick around. Let's see. What else? But I've always rooted against him, almost kind of from a jealousy aspect. I never had anything against him. He's just kind of fine. He's just kind of vanilla, you know. There's nothing really exciting about him. Like, he's kind of nerdy. But I could take him or leave him. But I've always I've always felt like we are same age. When he retired, I was like, that's it for me. I'm done. You know, I'm old. I got the skin cancer removed today. That's Pat Klett 1, skin cancer 0. Wow. So I'm getting old. This is how it is.
Thank goodness, buddy.
But yeah.
Glad to hear that, buddy.
Do you want my likes and dislikes of current ones? Or would you like to hear from Bill first?
Go ahead.
So my QB hate is Mahomes. I'm just tired of his TV commercials. Tired of them getting every call.
I could have guessed it.
Sam Darnold
I'm starting
gets
to worry
mugged.
Pat and I are starting to agree on pretty much everything, and that's one I cannot stand that guy. And I used to like him. Used to like him, but he is on everything now, dude, and he's whiny, and it feels like he should get every call. Oh my god!
Yeah, when I watched him on the Netflix quarterback thing, I was just like, this confirms it. He just kind of seemed like he's all about me. You know, Sam Darnold can get mugged in broad daylight, and refs don't see it, and Mahomes gets tapped on the head, and it's But and then Deshaun Watson, I don't like just because from what I hear, he's kind of a criminal.
Yeah.
So my QB likes Lamar Jackson for sure, and Baker Mayfield.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Nice. What about you, Bill?
Yeah, for me, Brady is, he's just clutch. He's a total winner. Is there any doubt he's the GOAT? I mean, I don't really know. I'm like Pat, though. I never really was a huge fan of his. I obviously did not like it when he beat the Seahawks in the Super Bowl. But I mean, it's really hard to look at Tom Brady and his career and say, like, I don't like that guy. I mean, he's just everything that team sports is about. A leader. He delivers in the clutch. I mean, the guy's amazing. For me, the current quarterback, you guys have heard me talk about him a little bit on the podcast, several different episodes already. I just love this Jaden Daniels kid. His moxie, he's accurate. He can run when he needs to. He delivers in the clutch. I'm really liking him. He kind of stole the Heisman last year from my guy, Big Penix. But, he deserved it.
Yeah,
so
Michael Penix.
He deserved it. And Yeah, Michael Penix. And then the guy that I hate is a 3-pack. It's not going to be I choose 3 different guys. It's one guy, and it's Justin Herbert, Marcus Mariota, and Bo Nix. They all played for Oregon. What else do I need to say?
Out of?
How did I not see that coming?
That's right. Yep. There's some guy named Anthony Brown apparently in the NFL as well, but he played at Oregon. I've never heard of him. So
well, you can throw Kelly Smith into that too, because he's like my all-time hated player.
Joey Harrington
sucked so bad. Joey Harrington did not do well for the Lions.
Yeah.
So obviously, I love Tom Brady, not just because he went to Michigan. I think he is the GOAT. For me, him going to Tampa and winning down there as well kind of cements it. And before that, it was always, is it him? Is it Belichick? Who is it? I think he showed it was him. Not taking anything away from Belichick, great coach, Hall of Famer, all time, one of the best. But I think it just showed that Brady truly is special and probably the greatest quarterback to ever play. As far as people I love, Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen are, in my opinion, the 2 best. And so I would definitely put them up there. But I do got to give some love, and this is going to pain me to do it. I got to give some love to Ohio State alum CJ Stroud. The guy was incredible last year. He is truly like the first Ohio State quarterback to really ever look like he knows what he's doing on the NFL field. I'll give Justin Fields some, he did a little bit earlier this season for the Steelers and looked like he was okay, but there's just something about Stroud that I think he's gonna be really, really good. He seems humble and quiet. He just goes about his business. I think he's gonna be a great quarterback for years for that franchise, and I hope so. He seems like a good guy. For ones that irritate me, we talked about Mahomes. I mean, he seems to be turning into a whining crybaby anytime a call doesn't go his way. But Aaron Rodgers for me just seems like a big dick. He's always complaining about something. He throws his teammates under the bus. So I don't like either of those guys.
That's who I thought Pat was gonna call out.
I thought about it, but he's okay. He's always just kind of been kind of funny to me. Like, I don't hate him. He's just kind of a funny dude. Like, he's got a little personality, and his arm is so good, and he's got such a strong arm, and he's fun to watch. Like, I wish we had him. It was like Rodgers a little bit. Don't tell anyone.
We're revoking your Minnesota.
I did actually just read. I think I just read CJ Stroud was 3 years old when Aaron Rodgers was drafted.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy? Yeah. All right, guys. Well, that was fun. Let's get into the show. Like always, we have a busy and awesome episode, and we have some very special news toward the end when we get to the Nailed It segment that will let one of our lucky listeners win. That news we were gonna wait. That was gonna be later in the season there, okay. Pat. But thanks for spoiling it. No, but this news is gonna let one of our lucky listeners win a trip with us. So keep listening. We'll share more details later in the episode. So we're going to get right into headlines, and we'll get into hot takes and reflections, our stone cold locks, and our top 5, which is a cool sports focused one today that Pat came up with. We're going to have lots of fun and shenanigans, and Pat will share why he voted for Pedro this year. All right, we're going to dive into the major headlines. The Dodgers are the World Series champs, taking down the Yankees and notching their 8th title and tying them for 5th all-time with their rival, the San Francisco Giants. The college basketball season started on Monday with Kansas is the AP preseason number 1, followed by Alabama, 2-time defending champs UConn, Houston, and the number 5 Iowa State Cyclones. I'm intrigued for this season as there are a lot of cool storylines. Very excited to get into some college basketball talk on this show, but probably not until after football season slows down a little bit more. In college football, the number 1 team sauntered into Ann Arbor and put a beatdown on the defending national champion Michigan Wolverines, 38-17. But I do have to say, Bill, I finally know why you can't stand the Oregon Ducks. Instead of easily kneeling, They chose to score in the waning seconds, and with covering the spread, they covered the spread as well. Not super classy, Ducks, but definitely made some bettors happy. That is for sure. It did not surprise you though at all, did it, Bill?
No, it didn't surprise me in the least bit. They could have kicked a field goal. They could have still covered the spread for all their alums. But no, they got to stuff it in at the end for meaningless touchdown. It's just typical Oregon Ducks football.
Yeah, I saw a side of that I didn't love, and it did not seem necessary. I mean, I do think 90% of teams there just kneel. I really think so. But oh well. All right. Well, Ole Miss continues their uneven season by going into Fayetteville and absolutely crushing the Razorbacks 63-31, setting up a very juicy matchup this Saturday in Oxford, where the Rebels host the Georgia Bulldogs, and both teams could be fighting for their CFP hopes. Some shout outs to quarterback Jackson Dart, who set a school record with 515 yards passing, and he threw for 6 touchdowns. And Ole Miss's 63 points ties the most points they have scored against an SEC opponent in their history. Nice win, Rebs. The Ohio State Buckeyes go into Happy Valley and leave very happy after beating Penn State 20-13. The Nittany Lions had every opportunity to win that game and made some very stupid decisions, including a key penalty that ended up resulting in an Ohio State score instead of what would have been a punt. Ryan Day needed that win badly, and Ohio State looked very good. Penn State should still get into the CFP, but this one doesn't look good for James Franklin as he lost for the 10th time in 11 tries against OSU. Sticking in the Big Ten, it is now time for our weekly Indiana Hoosier update. Indiana trailed Michigan State 10-0 in the first quarter, which, by the way, was the first time they trailed all season, and they ended up winning 47-10. Indiana has scored 40 or more points in 7 games this season, which is the most in the FBS. Their average winning margin against FBS competition, too, this is not FCS, is 28 points per game. I will say a couple marks against them. They have not beat a top 25 team yet, and their strength of schedule is 103rd in the country. They are now 2 touchdown favorites in Bloomington against Michigan this weekend. I will be there with my family. We're going to go for that one. Right. Cheapest ticket is now $250, which is just crazy for an IU game. And then they travel to CBUS next weekend for what most likely will be a top 10 class. So that will shed a lot more light on what type of team this really is. But great job, Indiana. Keep the dream season going. In the Big 12, there were a couple upsets where Iowa State loses at home to Texas Tech, and the awful Houston Cougars somehow beat Kansas State. But the biggest upset of the day was in the ACC, where Louisville goes into Clemson and pretty much dominates the game, winning 33-21 and making Miami the hands-down favorite to win that conference and get the top 4 seed in the CFP. Although the SMU Mustangs might have something to say about that as they take care of business at home, giving the Pitt Panthers their first loss of the season as the Mustangs win 48-25. SMU now sits at 8-1 with their only loss coming to top 10 BYU by 3 points in early September. Miami and SMU don't face each other in the regular season, but could be headed to the ACC championship game against one another in a few weeks. Georgia plays in a tight one most of the game until they pull away late and beat the Florida Gators by 2 touchdowns. In another SEC game and another upset, the Gamecocks hold serve at home and beat the Texas A&M Aggies very handily, 44-20. And the first CFP rankings came out with Oregon, Georgia, Miami, and BYU being the projected top 4 seeds, and Boise State being the non-Power 4 representative. It's way too early to get too worked up about any of these rankings or projections, but it should be interesting as the last few weeks of the regular season unfold. Shifting to the NFL, my Bengals finally win a home game, their first home game of the season for them to win against the Raiders, and it sets up a pretty big Thursday night game in Baltimore where if somehow the Bengals win that, they will even their record to 5-5 and could right the ship for the season. But this is still not a good team, so I will not be holding my breath. Speaking of the Ravens, they bounced back from their surprising loss to the Browns by steamrolling the Broncos 41-10. The Cowboys continue their dreadful season, losing to the Falcons, and now Dak looks to be out for a couple weeks due to injury. We'll see if backup quarterback Cooper Rush can put a jolt into this team as they face their rival, the Eagles, this weekend. Bills Seahawks come back in a thrilling fourth quarter finish to tie the game, only to lose in overtime to the Rams 26-20. I will say one bright spot was Jackson Smith and Jigba, who had a breakout game. This guy looks like he could be a huge stud. Pats Vikes get a good win against the Colts and their NFC North rival. The Lions take care of business in Green Bay and continue to look like the jewel of the NFC and possibly the best team in the NFL. Could it be the year where the Lions make their first Super Bowl ever? It certainly could be. All right. Wow. That was a lot, boys. Want to hear your thoughts, reflections, and hot takes from the weekend. Mr. Klett, kick us off.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned a couple of them. The Tampa Bay. I just need Tampa Bay to get one of these close wins. That was a tough one. The Chiefs and the refs. That lineman clearly false starts. Yeah, they covered, but I need that win. I need the Chiefs to lose. So it's Chiefs fatigue is real.
Was that a
Well, I have
what did you
I have the Bucks on my Odyssey team. They're one of my Odyssey teams.
Gotcha.
I've gone from first place. Now I'm down in like 6th, 7th place. So need my teams to start picking it up here down the stretch. Well, I really just need them to make the playoffs. That's the biggest thing, is you get those bonus points if they make the playoffs. So it's going to be a tough one. And that Vikes finally got right. Gophers beat Illinois, so I should probably jump on that bandwagon.
Yeah.
You mentioned Oregon punching it in for the late cover. Thank you very much. I'll take that. State does what Penn State does every year, pretend to be a contender till Ohio State punches them in the mouth. Hard to believe that Tua can make that much of a difference. But they gave Buffalo a fight. I think that's crazy how I never saw him as that big of a piece. Like, I didn't think he was that important to the team, but apparently he is. Drake May, that play that Drake May answered my prayers to get it to, I had Tennessee on that one, and they covered. That last second pass by Drake May was fun to watch. And then I think Detroit's the best team around, and that's the only team standing in the Vikes' way. So Detroit, until we beat them the last week of the season, they're good. What about you, Bill?
Yeah, you guys have nailed a couple of the ones. My Penn State take is a little bit about James Franklin. I just was curious your guys' thoughts on, he seems like the prototype good coach. Maybe he's a really good coach, but he's not an elite coach. And it's hard when you're a fan of a program that is really good every year, but you just can't seem to get over the hump. And Eric mentioned his record against Ohio State. Pat mentioned them getting punched in the face. This week, I think they get right against the Huskies at home. But that was just my take there. I found myself kind of thinking back to coaches that have done well maybe through the years. I thought of Mike Leach even at Mississippi State and at Wazoo, rest in peace. But he always won games. He just never could quite win the big one, whether it was the Apple Cup rivalry here in Washington State or SEC games, never quite get him over the hump. But the other quick thing I was just going to call out, because my other one was about Oregon and the douchey move to score. But Kirk Herbstreit, I really love the guy. Bierman, I know he's a Buckeye, but I just think he's just all class. Yeah, he's all class. And I saw him tweet about his dog, Ben. Did you guys see this? He's going through a cancer fight. I heard about it.
Okay. I knew vaguely some of the details. That's sad.
Yeah, and I think we're all dog guys, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I am. Yeah. And
I'm my dog. I'm my dog guy. I don't like other people's dogs, but I like my dog.
That's
so I'm kind of a half dog guy. I don't want to pet your dog.
That way about
your
kids,
dog's gross,
right? My kids, I like my kids. I just don't like anybody else's kids. But but he tweeted out that Ben is going through a cancer fight, and it's an animal, and some people go, whatever, that's no big deal, but that's not how we feel about our pets. And so I'm hoping for the best for Ben. I just wanted to give him a shout out. And then this is one of the most unbelievable things I've seen in my pools in the last 20 plus years, and I just had to mention this to you guys. So we do this NCAA teams pool, and it's a snake draft, and you have 16 entries, and they each draft 8 teams. Okay, that kind of gets you right through all of it leaves like 5 or 6, something like that, Division I football teams. This guy, Chris Payne, shout out to Chris Payne, big Chris Michigan guy, Bierman. Chris Payne, this is unbelievable. His team of 8 college football teams has not picked up a win in 3 weeks.
Ooh.
He's been stuck on 23 wins with his squad.
Florida State.
Some of the teams? Who was
Florida
like his first team? Oh, Florida State.
He probably drafted them high.
He
drafted them first round. Yeah.
First pick. And then this is where I'm going to throw myself under the bus as well, is that Chris is a highfalutin CEO for I think it's Jane Iredale Cosmetics. So shout out if you guys want to sponsor Jane Iredale.
Yeah, send us the check and
cosmetics.
We'll make it official. Yeah,
that's right. But
Todd will start wearing some cosmetics. If you got makeup, whatever.
I need cosmetics on my forehead.
Yeah. So Chris, give us a shout. We got you. But Chris was traveling during the draft, and I was trying to keep things moving. So he said, "Hey, Bill, can you just draft for me in several of these rounds?" And I was like, "Of course, yeah, I'm glad to do it." And I just went to the ESPN power projections or the rankings, and I just took the highest available team each time it got to him. But basically half of his team, I think, I drafted. And he has not picked up a single win in 3 weeks, you guys. I mean, that is impossible. You couldn't try to do that. If you picked 8 teams from the bottom of the stack, one of them is going to win a game.
0-24.
Anyway,
Jeez.
0-24 in the last 3
insane.
weeks. And I had to go check to see if I had messed up when I was scoring it. I'm like, that can't be right. He told me this, and I'm like, there's no way.
Here's his draft. He had the number 13 pick. There's 16 teams. He had the number 13 pick, and it's snake. And his first pick was Florida State. In the second round, he went with Oklahoma State.
Yep.
Third round, Oregon State.
Ooh,
that was my pick. I picked the Beavers.
Fourth round, and I remember actually thinking this was a great pick. Fourth round, Rutgers.
Yep, I picked Rutgers
because they have such an easy record.
You were a big fan.
I still think they're going to get the over. I still think they're going to hit the over, but they've lost a few in a row. San Diego State,
terrible.
His fifth pick, San Jose State, Georgia State, and Southern Miss. Yeah, dude, that is bad. Those are bad teams.
Oh God. In Bierman, is it 8 teams we draft in that one or 6?
It's 8 teams. Yeah, it's 8
teams.
Yeah,
it is 8. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I thought it was 8. I mean, he's Oprah's last funny. 24.
Yeah.
Anyway,
is it him or is it
people would appreciate it?
Is it Chris and Sanders? I think it's Chris and Sanders. It sounds like.
I think I drafted at least 4 of his 8 teams, so I gotta raise my hand and say I suck as well. But
that's
anyway.
Funny.
Isn't that amazing?
Funny. That is
Bierman, how about you? Do you have any other hot takes?
So I bet you guys didn't think I was gonna talk about Division II football today.
No.
But here we are.
I was hoping
here we are.
you
I'm gonna go off the beaten path a little bit.
It's a good time for me to take a break.
This one's this
I was
one's
gonna say, Bierman,
for
keep
you.
going. I'm just gonna grab another Coke. Please keep going.
Yeah.
You guys are killing me. All right. So we have talked about Vandy upsetting Alabama a couple weeks ago. And last week I mentioned Liberty lost to an 0-7 Kennesaw State team. But I want to throw the spotlight on Division II for a moment, where an 0-8 Southern Nazarene team notched one of the biggest upsets in recent history. They beat number 3. I'm not even going to be able to pronounce the name of this school right, but it is, I believe, Wachita Baptist, who was 8-0. Okay, they were number 3 in D2. They were 8-0. They lost to an 0-8 Southern Nazarene team. I saw somewhere that there was a line on this game. I don't know if I believe that there was a line in a D2 game, but I saw that there was the line. The line was 44 points. But either way, Southern Nazarene wins the game 18-17. Southern Nazarene didn't score a touchdown until 24 seconds left when they took the lead. They went for 2 and it was intercepted and almost returned for the winning score, but the player was tackled. The massive upset was secured. I want to congratulate the Crimson Storm on one for the ages. And just in case you were wondering where this game took place, it took place in a town called Arkadelphia, Oklahoma.
You're making all
it was not televised.
This happened in Bierman's mind. This happened in Bierman's imagination.
I also want to give a shout out to Eastern Michigan in their loss to Toledo on Saturday. This was a fairly important game in the MAC, especially for bowl eligibility. Eastern plus 8 points was one of my best bets, so I was watching the end of this game pretty intently. Eastern led most of the game, only to see Toledo come back to take a 28-21 lead with less than 2 minutes left. The Eagles moved the ball a little past midfield and then heaved a Hail Mary as time expired, and it was caught. So, are we tied up? No. In a very ballsy move, but one I love, regardless of the outcome. I told myself, I love this move. Eastern head coach Chris Creighton decided to go for 2 in the win.
I wish
The
Tampa
pass
Bay
was
did
actually
that.
a good one, and it
needed
and it
Tampa
hit the
Bay to do
receiver
that.
in the hands. I know. I wish more teams would do it. I really do.
Yeah.
I think it depends on how you're feeling your team is, and is your team actually better than the other team and can handle them in overtime. But especially with college, I think college overtime can just, I don't know. I think both overtimes are not great, actually, the way they handle it. But anyways, the pass was a really good pass for the 2-point conversion, but the receiver couldn't hold on, and Eastern lost. But I do just want to commend the keep fighting attitude by the team for the awesome Hail Mary and then trying to go for the win outright. Nice job, Eagles. And thank you for bringing me the cover too. I was going to go on a rant too, but we're going to move on because, boys, we are going to move on to the segment where we can make our listeners and have made our listeners lots of money. That's right. It is time for Stone Cold Locks. It was not our best showing last week, but thanks to the incredibly talented Pat Klett, we had a serviceable week. Pat led the way at 2-1, and Eric and Bill both went 1-2. Our season records are now, Pat is at 29-1. Very impressive, young man.
Nice.
Bill, you're at 17-12-1, and I am still above 500, still making a little money, cashing some tickets. I'm at 16-13-1. But let's get started here. Pat, the guru, the oracle, the all-knowing gambling legend, please lead us off.
Just to clarify,
going.
I'm not at 29-1, like 29 wins, 1 loss.
No, you're not at 29.
20 wins.
You're at 20.
losses. Yes. Okay.
Not.
It sounded like you said 29-1.
Let's not get carried away. Yeah, I guess it probably did, but
the oracle.
My first lock is Buffalo -4 versus Indy, and this part of this is just because I just watched Indy against the Vikings, and they were so bad. They can't move the ball. They aren't getting much out of Jonathan Taylor, and as much as I love Flacco, he has nobody to really throw to and no time to do so. So for me, I think this is Buffalo by 30. I think they're just gonna crush Indy.
Again, I gotta tell you, this is one that I didn't think of, but when you say it, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna start that one. That's gonna be a bet. I mean, that's a great pick.
Indy's,
you're right.
Indy's defense
awful.
is good. Indy's defense is pretty solid. Like they got some guys in the middle who can stuff the run, but Buffalo can do it with Josh Allen's ability. He's so versatile. I don't think
Pat
that's as
Klett
effective.
talks, you should listen. And that's what I'm gonna do here.
Yep.
Yeah.
Buffalo, lock it in.
All right. That's a good one, Pat. Thank you, sir.
Mm-hmm.
I am locking it in. Bill, what you got?
Well, this has worked in the past. It's a 2-pat this week.
Nice.
Buffalo is to me that
now
seemed like
I feel like an idiot
Central.
For not coming up with this one.
That one Pat nailed it all. I mean, he watched the game closer than I did with the Vikes, but the whole Anthony Richardson situation and Flacco, and I think Josh Allen's just starting to get going. Is Amari Cooper getting healthier? Now he's going to be in the system a little bit longer. They just seem dangerous, and that just felt like not enough points for me as well. I do also want to just quickly shout out last week. If I knew Army's quarterback was hurt, never would have picked my little 2-pick service schools play. Still shout out Veterans Day. Thank you for everyone for their service. But that sucked big time because they still creamed. I mean, they still won 20-3, and they were so close to covering. But yeah, that hurts a little, Bierman, when we lock these picks in early in the week, and then that happens. It's hard. But anyway, no excuses. Still lost. Bierman, what do you got for your first one?
Yeah, so my first one is Liberty minus 10.5 at Middle Tennessee State. I do want to just preface that all three of my Stone Cold locks this week are non-Power 4 games. All are favorites, and all are teams with winning records over teams that I think are just extremely bad. So we're going to start with Liberty, given the 10.5 at Middle Tennessee. 2 weeks ago, the Flames were cruising at 5-0. Looked like they could even have an outside chance at the CFP. Since then, they've dropped back-to-back games to an 0-7 Kennesaw State team and Rich Rod's Jacksonville State team. Despite these setbacks, I like the Flames this week, primarily because they play a very bad Blue Raider team. The Blue Raiders sit at 3-6 with their only wins against Kennesaw State, a 1-7 UTEP, and FCS Tennessee Tech in week 1. Those are the Blue Raiders' 3 wins. They are ranked 129th in points scored, 97th in yards gained, and their defense ranks a dismal 123rd in the nation, giving up 465 yards per game. Liberty still boasts a top 40 offense and a top 45 defense. I don't think they're going to have any problem containing Middle Tennessee. It's just not enough points for what I think will be an angry and motivated Liberty team. I could see them winning by more than 20, actually, so I will gladly take Liberty and give the 10.5.
All right. My second one's going to be, obviously sticking with the NFL until I see something out of college that I can figure out, but I can't. Atlanta. 3.5, given 3.5 in against New Orleans. Sometimes a coaching move can help a team, and the next week they get a new coach, they're all fired up. I just don't think that's going to happen with New Orleans right now. I don't see them turning it around, and I'm going to go Atlanta by 30 points. Yeah, New Orleans. Nice. New Orleans is it's a struggle. Struggle's real.
I had it in my honorables, but that's not going to be a 2, Pat. But I love that pick, Pat. So my second pick is I feel like I'm picking against the Huskies and against Michigan every week, Eric. But I'm taking the Fighting Cignettis going into the Big House.
It's a good pick.
Yeah, so minus 14, and that's a big line. They're going into the Big House.
No, they're not. It's not the Big House.
It's in Indiana. I have it as versus Michigan, not at Michigan. Yeah. But yeah, I just feel like they've been handling teams. They seem to put up 40 plus every game. I don't see why that changes. I think Curtis Rourke's thumb's probably getting healthier. Michigan's been struggling. To me, this just felt like just keep rolling with Indiana. The other thing too, and we talked quickly in the headlines about the college football playoff, but I think I texted you guys this when I saw this yesterday. To me, that felt like a pretty low ranking for Indiana, being undefeated. Now, I understand they haven't played a ton of high-quality teams yet. But anyway, I just wonder if they've got a little chip on their shoulder heading into this one. Another chance for them to look good in front of the committee. So that's my second. I have it at minus 14, Eric.
Yeah, that's what I have too. And don't ever underestimate the Fighting Cigs. I think they're legit. All right, for my second, on last week's podcast, I highlighted some well-known coaches who are finding success at smaller schools. One standout is former UCLA coach Jim Mora, who's starting to turn things around in Storrs, Connecticut. I like the Huskies giving 6 at UAB. After a 3-9 season last year, he now has the Huskies sitting at 6-3 and already eligible for a bowl game. UConn's offense is solid, but it's their top 40 defense that I really like. They are up against a struggling 3-6 Blazer squad with a mediocre offense, a poor defense that gives up 425 yards per game, and discipline issues. They average almost 9 penalties per game, and they have over a -1 turnover differential. Morris Huskies are sneakily good, and with this line under a touchdown, I'm all in, giving the points -6 Huskies.
Okay.
Love that. Jim Mora went to out of
Washington.
Yep.
Did you really? Good.
Yeah.
Nice. All right, Pat, finish this off.
That was a guess, by the way. That was just a guess because I assumed.
Yeah, no, you're right. Linebacker.
Yeah.
For the Huskies.
My last one actually is a college game. It's Iowa UCLA over 44.5. I do like to go overs in the Friday night light games.
My how things have changed. Picking Iowa overs this season.
I know,
wow,
I know,
crazy.
but they can probably put up 44 on their own against UCLA. UCLA has been doing better as of late. They're starting to move the ball. They're not turning it over as much. So I think they can score a little bit, and they're going to be in front of their home crowd. So whether it's in garbage time or maybe they keep the game close, I think this game's going to take over 44.5. I wanted to pick Iowa, but I will just do the over. So give me the over 44.5 points in UCLA on a Friday night. People are going to want to show up and show out, put some points on the board. And if Iowa plays tough and their defense plays tough, I think they'll put up 44 on their own. So,
yeah, Pat, that was the over-under number?
44.5.
Was 44?
Mm-hmm.
44.5. Gotcha. Yeah, nice. So my last one, guys, Holy War. I'm sticking with the Mormons. They're -5 at Utah. This one just feels like the odds maker forgot that BYU is actually good. Utah is not good. They've lost 4 straight. They lost to Houston on a last-second field goal. Eric, one of your favorite terrible teams this year. Both teams coming off the bye, but I'm taking Mormons to the bank. I think this one is Cougars in a rout.
Well, it's not one of my Stone Cold locks here, but I actually do go against you on my Bierman's best bets. I did pick.
What you got?
I did.
What was your reason?
Well, I actually wrote that there's no logic behind it. It is a gut feeling in the Holy War. All reasonable people would pick BYU, but it kind of goes to like when a line looks too good, what we were talking about a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
I just take a step back and I think about it. It is a rivalry game. It's, a field goal. We still cover. I understand BYU's played well. I do think BYU's played a little bit over their skis this season. I think Utah is better than the record indicates. And I think it's going to be a close game. And I actually think Utah could upset them. So,
yeah. All right.
Is Cam Rising?
We'll
Rising out? Is he still out? Cam Rising?
For the year.
Yeah, he's out. He's out
again.
But Bill, no, it's funny. It's probably the only best bet I've made all season where I'm like, I really don't have any stats here to back this up or any logic other than it's a gut feel.
Trust your gut.
Yeah.
So
go with the gut. Yeah.
All right. With my third Stone Cold lock, we're going to stay outside of the Power Four conferences and back another strong team against
Crimson
the struggling one. Not going Crimson Storm. That might be next week. I'm going to check out Southern Nazarene and make sure they continue the hot momentum there. This week, it is the 6-2 James Madison Dukes, who boast a top 10 scoring offense and a top 30 defense. They've been impressively disciplined, committing less than 1 turnover per game while forcing over 3 from their opponents. The Dukes face a 2-6 Georgia State squad that, despite their surprising win over Vanderbilt in week 3, has spiraled with 5 straight losses since. The Panthers average just 22 points per game, and their defense leaks over 425 yards per contest. I fully expect the Dukes to just dominate this game from the opening whistle, and I will gladly give the 17 points. All right, boys. Wow, we got some Good ones here. We have all favorites. 8 of our 9 picks are favorites, and the 9th is an over. So we are falling into the public trap there, but that's okay. I love all the picks and all the logic behind it. All right, we're going to move into our top 5, and Pat came up with this one. It is a good one. It is our top 5 best sports head-to-head matchups. We're going to share our top 5 heads-up sports matchups. They can be current or in the past. They can be teams or individuals, and they can be from any sport. This was a lot of fun to research. I had lots of honorable mentions on this one. It was tough to narrow down to 5. But Pat, why don't you start us off with your number 5 and number 4?
All right, my number 5 and 4. I'll stick with the NFL for these two. And in a time period that your Ravens versus Steelers during the era of Ed Reed, Ray Lewis, Troy Polamalu, Roethlisberger, Flacco. I mean, those years when Ravens played Steelers, it was as good as it gets. I thought that watching those matchups where they're just knocking each other out. I mean, snot flying everywhere. It's, sometimes you get those tough weather games too. It was so fun to watch those games. And that time period with the Ray Lewis, Ed Reed, Polamalu years was so fun to watch the Ravens Steelers. And another matchup, similar time period, maybe a little earlier too, was the Colts Patriots, Manning Brady years. You had so many good games. You had that 4th and 2 where Belichick goes for it in 2009, make it. And then you got the 2006 AFC Championship. Colts beat them and went on to the Super Bowl. There was just so many good games, and the games are, Manning to Harrison. It's too fun to watch. That was the best the NFL.
Those were
had
those
to
were good
offer.
ones. I thought about both those, Pat.
Yeah.
Yep. Definitely. For me, I started off with 2 basketball NBA ones. MJ and the Bulls versus the Bad Boy Pistons.
Oh, that's a good one. I like that.
Man, do you guys remember seeing those highlights? I mean, it was vicious.
Yeah.
And like the vitriol.
Bill Laimbeer, one of my favorite. I love Bill Laimbeer as a kid growing up in Detroit, dude. Oh my
Rodman,
God.
Laimbeer, Joe Dumars, Isaiah, like just,
Vinnie
great
Johnson,
players.
the microwave.
Yeah. Just great players, but also too just a battle all the time. And so that was my 5. Number 4 is just a classic, of course, the Lakers versus the Celtics. Magic Bird, before our time, but Wilt versus Russell, just some really, really great matchups. But, also too, I feel like there's this matchup between the cities, right? You have this Hollywood glam, soft, like, oh, you're West Coast and surfers and all that. And then Boston, like cold and miserable weather and just like hardened and all that. And so it just, those dynamics I thought were always super fun. And they just felt like it always was incredible drama and it always delivered. And so that was my number 4.
Those
those
are awesome, man. So, all right. Well, Pat, I think you'll appreciate this. We really haven't talked about this, but I grew up in a tennis family. My parents played it a lot, and I played a lot as a kid. I was never what you would call great, but definitely played a lot. And, every major tennis tournament final was on the TV, and we watched it religiously as a family. So my number 5 and number 4 are tennis related and from the era of the late 70s and early 80s. So I'll start with number 5 with Martina Navratilova and Chris Evert. These two face each other in 14 Grand Slam finals, with Evert winning 4 and Martina winning 10. Evert did better on clay and on hard courts. Overall, Navratilova holds a 43-37 edge in their head-to-head meetings. I would say, they're incredible play and they're serious but good-hearted rivalry helped fuel the popularity of the sport back then, especially women's tennis, into the 80s and beyond, and staying very strong today. For number 4, we'll stay on the tennis courts in the same era and go with John McEnroe versus Jimmy Connors. These guys didn't have as many matches against each other as Evert and Martina, but man, they were fun personalities to watch. McEnroe, as I'm sure all of us know, was just a powder keg, could go off any second. He was just always so animated, but as a kid, it made it fun to watch.
Yeah.
Well, ironically, and that's what, ironically, Connors was that way earlier in his career, but by the time I started to watch him, a lot of their matches, he was more mature, a little bit calmer, and kind of seemed to take the high road and come off as the higher road type guy there. But on the courts, McEnroe definitely got the better of Jimmy. They only played each other twice in Grand Slam finals. They each won one. But in Grand Slam matches overall, McEnroe led 6-3. And similar to the ladies that I mentioned earlier, Connors and McEnroe did a lot to popularize the sport on TV. And I could have thrown Bjorn Borg in here too, who I also really loved. It was might have been better, the best of the three. And he played a lot of good matches against both these guys too. But those were my number 5 and 4. Pat, what do you got for 3 and 2?
I like it. And everyone loves tennis. I mean, it's such a popular sport, so I'm gonna stick with the tennis theme. Those are good matchups, and I like them. But for me, it was Agassi Sampras. When I was playing college tennis,
there's so many good
tennis,
ones in tennis.
Those guys that was that era. So Sampras was 20-14 head to head, but including there was the 2001 U.S. Open quarterfinal. That was a huge match, and they played 5 Grand Slam finals against each other. But I think it was so great because you got to see Agassi in both his eras, like his long-haired, doing meth before 10. He steps out on the court era, and then when he had his head shaved and he got his life straight era, and whereas Pete Sampras was just always steady, same guy. That was so fun to watch because there were different style players too. Sampras had the big serve and could come to net, whereas Agassi's return game was so fun to watch, and just to have those two go at it was fantastic. But I'll get off tennis because I know it's not the most popular sport. I'm going to move into, for my number 2, golf. Woods versus Mickelson.
We might have just had half of our listeners leave. So
tennis,
we had 3
They're
tennis
looking for
in a row.
The skip button.
Even as a tennis guy,
those are good, you guys. There's so many other ones too.
I would rather watch football, but I do like tennis majors. But I feel like a little bit. Anyway, moving on. Woods and Mickelson. Golf.
Well, I get to some epic ski matches for my number 3 and 2.
Skiing.
So stay tuned.
Phil Mayer versus Steve Mayer. Like,
nice.
Anyway, so
Woods downhillers. I love it.
Back to Woods Mickelson. It was, and this is a sport where it's not against each other; it's against the course. But you have almost fall into 2 categories, and it's funny how good it was. Always kind of good versus evil. Like Mickelson was always the good guy, Woods was kind of the bad guy, and that role has since switched now with Liv.
Yes,
and how now Mickelson is now the evil, whereas Mickelson was like, I remember when Mickelson won the Masters, my dad was like almost in tears. He was so excited for him, he was like everybody's favorite, and now how quickly things can change, and that whole, it's not necessarily a rivalry, but it's just you're either in one camp or you're in the other, right? You're rooting for this guy or you're rooting for that guy.
Yeah, I think it's a great rivalry.
I was hoping somebody would put them on. It was one of my honorables. I didn't go with them, but totally agree with that one. Those are great, Pat. What do you got, Bill?
Yeah, Bierman, are you going to talk Ohio State, Michigan?
I am.
Okay, so I'm going to skip that one. Sorry, I just that was my number.
Spoiler alert! It's my number 1. Yeah, it's my number 1, which I kind of probably not a surprise.
Which I have in my notes is that you would probably highlight this one, but just it's the only thing I put in my top 5 for college football, and I mean, any college football fan I think looks forward to that matchup every year. For all that's on the line, it feels like every year, for the great players that they have in both programs, for the great coaches they have in even Jim Harbaugh, the great coaching, And then it just feels like, and I've described this to you guys when I went to the Horseshoe, for the Washington State game of all games. I just happened to be there, but just to see the hatred of the fan base when they weren't even playing Michigan was just something that I thought is just incredible.
It's unlike anything. It is.
Yeah, and I'll let you. I'm sure you've got lots of cool things to say about it. But that was my number 3. Sorry, and then my number 2 is one that I think you guys will appreciate too, just being college hoop fans. Pat, I know you're a March couple weeks college hoop fan, but you said that's when you bring out all the knowledge, the research. But Duke versus UNC. North Carolina.
Yep, I had that. I had that on my list, and I crossed it off. That was number 6.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just one of those ones again, and it's very similar to, I guess, how I feel about Ohio State or Michigan. I'm not a fan of either one of the schools, but I mean, the amount of players that have come through those two schools, the quality, the great coaching with Coach K, Dean Smith, through the years, that it felt like they played each other 2-3 times a year. Maybe they even got each other in the big dance, but just awesome college basketball. And Eric, you mentioned this guy. I think it was maybe our last episode when we were talking about broadcasters or people behind the mic. And I think Dickie V was just also one of those things that kind of went hand in hand with this matchup. Yeah. And when I was doing some research, I love that he had chalked this up. This is something he had said at some point. I can't remember the year, but he called it his 3 Ps: proximity, power, and passion. And I just thought that was so perfectly said for how close those schools are, how great they are, and the passion of those fan bases. And so that was my number 2.
Yep. Man, you guys are bringing it. Those are great. So for my number 3, I'm going very specific. I am going with the Browns and the Broncos in 1987 and 1988. Ooh. Okay. 2 epic games, both in the AFC Championship games with the Super Bowl at stake. We'll start with the drive. Played in Cleveland, January 11th, 1987. Bronco quarterback John Elway led his team 98 yards in 5 minutes to tie the game with 37 seconds left, and then they won the game in overtime with a 33-yard field goal. The next year, this time, it's at Mile High in Denver. It looked like the Browns would get their revenge. This time it was Cleveland who was trying to tie the game up as the clock dwindled down on a 2nd and 5 from the 8-yard line. Quarterback Bernie Kosar of the Browns hands the ball to running back Ernest Biner, who got the first down and then tried to score, but the ball was jostled out and covered by Denver. They ran 3 plays, forced the Browns to use their timeouts. The last-second Hail Mary fell silently as the Browns were devastated for the 2nd year in a row. And to this day, they still have not made a Super Bowl. And then for number 2 of my all-time faves, I definitely thought about Mickelson and Woods, but I had to go with Jack Nicklaus and Arnold Palmer. Palmer played from 55 to 1980, and Nicklaus played from 1962 to 1990. So they played together they played longer, but that was the actual PGA Tour. So they played together for about 18 years or so on the PGA Tour, but their biggest rivalry was in the 60s and into the early 70s. And again, this isn't really a rivalry. You both brought it every time they stepped onto the course, and I just love them both. Nicklaus won 73 times on the PGA Tour, 3rd all time, and 18 majors, which of course is the record. Arnold Palmer won 62 times on the PGA Tour, which is 5th all time. He won 7 majors, the British, US, and Masters, but never the PGA Championship, where he finished 2nd 3 times. Both were great friends. They both gave a lot to charity. They both helped to popularize the game of golf. And frankly, they epitomize, in my opinion, what golf and a healthy golf rivalry is all about. Rip, Arnie, and stay healthy and live long, Jack. All right, Pat, what do you got for number 1?
Well, this probably is just because I watched the Netflix documentary this weekend, but the Red Sox Yankees, that what a time to be alive in 03-04. Just incredible.
Oh,
incredible series.
I will never forget. I'm not a fan of either one, but I will never forget 04.
Never forget it. Even the year before with Aaron Boone, with the walk-off
Yeah.
Game 7. I mean, that was a
Yeah.
sweet series. But I love Big Papi in his 2004 campaign where he really came out and it became Big Papi.
It's
that
nuts,
was
dude.
so fun to watch, and I liked all the characters on the Red Sox. And it's a fun. If you get, it's 3 episodes. They're all an hour long. It just came out on Netflix. It was fun to watch. It was a good watch. But yeah, that time to watch baseball, that was the time. You got, Schilling with a bloody sock. Roger Clemens.
Forgot about the bloody sock.
Pedro Martinez, the brawl, the Pedro Martinez where he knocks down what's his name? The assistant
A-Rod?
coach. No, the assistant coach, the old guy. Zimmer. Don Zimmer.
Don Zimmer.
Don Zimmer.
Yeah, Don Zimmer.
And it's just great. I think that was the best. That's the best rivalry, I think, head to head in sports, because it still carries over today. You still feel it, even though none of the same characters are there. Great one. You can still sense it.
Yeah, Pat, that's my same. That's my number one as well. Call it a 2, Pat. 2004. I mean, you guys know. I mean, Pat.
It was incredible. Yeah.
For me, my individual impact, I guess, with that year, that series, that rivalry, is I started as a full-time employee at Microsoft in 2004, and I worked in business development, sales, and I had several people on my team that were from Boston and New York. And so I remember them. We strung cable through in our offices in Red West buildings of Microsoft. I stayed late into the night one time to actually run coax cable so that I could bring this little TV in there. And these guys all just thought I was the greatest, young kid, because we watched the games in there. And I mean, but just that rivalry between those two fan bases, the Veritek A-Rod incident, there's just another one to sort of fuel the flames. But yeah, coming back 3-0. I have a good buddy out here who had a bet with his wife, and it ended up with I believe he was cooking naked. I think was the payoff, being the Yankees guy or something like that. I mean, the stakes were high, but in their marriage on this one. But anyway, it was just one of those things where it was just a great series and a great capper to the year, and Boston, ending the curse. Unbelievable.
Yeah, the FDA will shut that restaurant down if he's cooking naked.
Yeah, just in their condo.
The health organization will shut it down.
He was talking so much shit when the Yankees went up 3-0, and then for Somali to have
that was
them
nuts.
come back was pretty crazy. So
yeah. All right, for my number one, no surprise to me. There's no better heads-up matchup in all of sports than Ohio State versus Michigan. Some facts about this epic battle throughout the years. It is simply called the game. Michigan has the most wins in NCAA football history, and Ohio State has the 3rd most wins. The teams first met in 1897, and it was played uninterrupted from 1918 through 2020 until COVID forced a year off. They have 119 total meetings. Michigan leads 61-51 with 6 ties. Largest victory was Michigan, 86-0 back in 1902. Ooh. The longest win streak was 9, with Michigan taking that also in the early 1900s. The 2000s were dominated by Ohio State, with Michigan only winning in 2003 and 2011 until Michigan's reemergence a few years ago in 2021, and the Wolverines have won the last 3, although most likely to change this year. Michigan has 3 Heisman winners, Ohio State 7. Became very popular in the 1970s for the 10-year war between Woody Hayes and Bo Schembechler that took place from Bo's first year in 1969 to Hayes' last year in 1979. And one of my favorite quotes ever came from that 10-year period. Hayes, when asked why he went for 2 at the end of a game and already winning by a ton of points, answered quickly,
because I couldn't go for 3. That type of animosity, yet mutual respect for one another, is what makes this such a compelling and usually very important matchup every year. And real quick, I got to just share, in the game of the century in 2006 in Seabus, my dad and I went up there. And that game was unusual because it started at 3:30 and the weather was gorgeous for late November. We pull onto campus. We're at a stoplight. This obviously drunk frat boy who had been up all night is ready to cross the street. He looks at us once, he looks at us twice, he does a triple take. He sees our clothes through the windows, comes up to our windshield, gives us the double bird screaming, "Fuck Michigan, fuck Michigan, fuck Michigan." I just turned to my dad and said, "Welcome to Ohio State, Dad." Gotta love it. It's by far my favorite heads-up matchup in the world of sports. Long live the game.
Awesome.
All right, that was fun, guys. Pat, thank you for that topic. That was a good one. All right, well, everyone, we have some very exciting news to share around our Nailed It segment. This is something we've been doing since almost the beginning of our podcast, and we've been teasing this particular moment for a while, that we are going to open this competition up to our listeners. That day has finally come. As you might know, each week, Bill asks 5 questions and the 3 of us give our guesses. We compete against each other and the stakes are fairly big. This competition runs through the Super Bowl, and once decided, the 2 losers have to fly to the winner's city and treat that person to a nice and fancy dinner at the winner's choice of restaurant. And although we haven't talked about it, I'm sure we will probably throw a sporting event in there too for the weekend, depending on timing. But we are now going to let listeners submit their guesses each week too for a chance to join us. You will get 1 point per question if your guess is the closest compared to all other competitors who submitted their guesses that week as well. And if you get it exactly right, meaning you nailed it, then you will get 2 points for that guess. The person each week who gets the most nailed it points will go on the leaderboard for that week, and we will put that on our website. You're competing against other listeners who submit their guesses that week. You're not competing against the 3 of us. Our competition will remain separate. If more than one person ties for most points that week, all people who won or tied for the win will be included on the leaderboard for that week's winners. After the AFC and NFC championship game weekends, anyone who has won a week will get to compete against all the other winners in a special Super Bowl edition of Nailed It. So to get to the final Nailed It, you have to have won a week. But if you won a week, then you make it to the finals, and then you get a chance to win the trip. Whoever wins that, who wins the final Super Bowl edition of Nailed It, will win a trip to the city of the winner between Eric, Pat, and Bill. So it will either be Cincinnati, Seattle, or Minneapolis. And we at the Enter Sandman Sports Podcast will pay for all travel expenses, lodging, dinner, meals, etc. And you will be a guest on one of our podcast episodes after the competition. A few additional rules to keep in mind. Bill will ask 5 questions weekly on our podcast, and we will also post the questions on our website. Both of those, the podcast and the questions on our website, are typically published Thursday afternoon. You must email your answers and your guesses to info@entersandmansports.com by noon on Saturday each week to be eligible to win that week. We will post these same rules on our website as well under the Nailed It tab, so you can check it out there too. But you will need to email your answers to our website or to our email address, info@entersandmansports.com by noon each Saturday.
Noon Eastern.
By noon Eastern. Yes. Thank you, Bill. The person with the most points will win that week, will go on the leaderboard, and will be eligible to compete in the final end of season Nailed It Super Bowl edition that I talked about earlier, with the opportunity to win the trip. All right. I think we covered it. Bill, did I miss anything? Or are you ready to start us off with this week's questions? Exciting stuff.
Yeah. Well, let's just dive right in. Eric, nice job
Okay,
covering
let's do
all
it.
that, and looking forward to all of the people out there in Sandman Nation that have been loyally supporting us and following us, listening, liking, subscribing, giving them a chance to play along and ultimately win the big prize. Could it be to Minneapolis, perhaps?
Is Pat
Episode
doing well?
11, old Patrick Klett threw down a 4-point week to get back into the hunt. Bill, 2 points. Eric, 1 point. So both
not
Pat
good.
and I made up a slight amount of ground. Pat's right back in it. Eric with 22 points. Bill with 18. And Pat with 17 points. Don't call it a comeback, boys.
Could be coming to the Twin Cities.
Once I found out,
I
found out losers had to pay, then I was like, oh, well, then I better try.
Oh, I got to try. Are you guys got your phones out?
Let's
Ready
do
to
it.
answer? All right. Let me just find our thread here. Okay. So we're going to try to, because listeners are playing now, we're going to try to mix up our questions a little bit and make sure, as Eric mentioned, that it's things you guys can answer by Saturday at 12 p.m. Eastern. This first question is actually a golf question, and I think it still will work fine. And so we'll see how it goes this week, and maybe we'll have to adjust. But the Worldwide Technology Championship tees off from Cabo San Lucas this weekend. Eric Van Rooyen won the tournament last year at 27 under par. The question is, how many players will finish at 20 under or better this year? Okay, last year's tournament, there were 9 that finished at 20 under or better. So if you wait until Saturday morning to answer this question, you'll have a couple rounds worth of data. Up to you if you want to take that into account or not. So last year there were 9 total. All right, boys.
Yeah, and I think that's okay because all the listeners will have the same advantage, and all 3 of us are doing it now too. So, yep.
Okay. 3, 2, 1, go. Pat, I almost guessed 11. That's what I had typed in first. Pat guessed 11. I have 8. Bierman has 5. Okay. Saturday, the Georgia Bulldogs travel to Oxford to face the Ole Miss Rebels at 12:30 Pacific. Georgia is a 2.5-point favorite. What will the winning margin be? The team does not matter. What will the winning margin be in this matchup? 3, 2, 1, go. Okay. I'm hoping for a close game. I guess 5. Bierman boxed in completely with 6. And Pat is hoping for a blowout either way.
That was the
7.
most evil laugh ever.
Bill looked at me and he winked 5 times. And I gave him back the...
Oh, this is wow.
Oh,
all right.
Wow. You can't get any more boxed in than that. Pat 7, Eric 6, Bill 5.
I guess I got to just nail it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you got to nail it. You can get the 2 points. All right, question number 3. The Winnipeg Jets lead the NHL as of yesterday when I put these questions together with 11 wins in 12 games to start the year. Their 22 points is 3 better than anyone else, and they're averaging 5 goals per game. They have 3 games this week after we record, but my question is, how many goals will they score versus Dallas on Saturday, November 9th? Okay, they're averaging 5 goals per game. How many goals will the Winnipeg Jets score versus Dallas on Saturday, November 9th?
Yep.
3, 2, 1, send it. Oh, okay. Pat shutout. I like that.
Jake Ottinger, Minnesota's own.
Bierman's
Going to shut him out.
High scoring. Yeah. I know. I went with 3 because of Ottinger. Bierman guessed 4. So Bierman's hoping for a high scoring game, and Winnipeg's just been lighting the lamp all year. So incredible performance to start the year. Question number 4. On Saturday, November 9th at 6:30 p.m. Pacific, number 11 Auburn travels to the Toyota Center in Houston to face Kelvin Sampson's number 4 Houston Cougars in an early season clash. LJ Cryer is the shortest player on the court for Houston at 6'1". How many points will he score versus Auburn? Last year, he averaged 15.5 points per game. LJ Cryer, the smallest player on the court. How many points will he score? 3, 2, 1, send. Oh my gosh,
Whoa.
that's insane. Okay, so Bierman and I both guessed 21. Pat guessed 22. All right, Pat, looking good, buddy. You're just hoping for a high-scoring game, and you're going to secure an easy point there. Bierman and I hoping to push with the low scoring. Okay, last question, boys. The NFL heads to Munich, Germany this Sunday. A monster 6:30 a.m. Pacific clash between the 2-7 Giants and the 2-7 Carolina Panthers. Yuck. In celebration of the putrid squads, how many total turnovers will there be in this contest?
Panthers,
ready? 3, 2, 1, send it. Bierman and I 3 each. Pat Klett 4. All right. Well, we got a lot of close guesses.
Wow.
And it's going to be a challenge, but I think I speak for all three of us when I say, again, thank you to everybody that's been listening and following. All the feedback, all of the positive remarks and response has been wonderful. We're really looking forward to this contest and having you guys get involved. No matter who wins, it's going to be a blast to go to that city and celebrate with these three plus our lucky winner. So we're really looking forward to it.
I can't wait. I'm so excited about this. So please, listeners, enter, email us your guesses, and can't wait to see at least one of you in one of our cities here in a few months. So, all right, guys, this was fun. Thanks for another fun show. It is sadly time to exit Sandman Sports. Big shout out again to our St. Louis syndicate, Nate Blackson and Brandon Lewis. Just two longtime players who keep doing quick hit videos for us each week. They're doing a great job. You can find them and their videos on our YouTube channel and on our website. Please check us out on Instagram at Enter Sandman Sports. Our website, as I've mentioned many times, is entersandmansports.com. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at Enter Sandman Sports. Follow us on Facebook at Enter Sandman Sports. All right. Thank you, everybody. I hope you have another awesome weekend. Peace out.
Good luck, everybody.